difficult to follow Dr. Jamshad Akhtar and Mahmood Mandviwala, but I'll try. The topic that was given to me is international perception of Pakistan as an investment destination. I was planning to discuss it in a different manner, but yesterday's events in my adopted hometown of Lahore, particularly related to my profession, triggered some different thoughts in my mind. And why I say that is because the perception of the country as a country and the perception of the country as an investment destination are not exclusive. So what impacts perception? Local and international press. For example, yesterday's news related to lawyers and doctors prompted many messages to people like me saying that you keep talking about Pakistan being a great place to invest in, and then we see this on our news channels. और मैं ये बात सिर्फ foreign investors की नहीं कह रहा. Our biggest potential investors are the Pakistani diaspora. And not just the Pakistani diaspora, overseas Pakistanis sending their own remittances, but in fact the Pakistanis, like I guess some of the speakers here today, who have worked at or still work at large international organizations and can be responsible for driving their organization's agenda towards Pakistan. अगर उनको faith नहीं है in Pakistan and its ability to be a great investment destination, तो फिर बाकी दुनिया अभी हमारे से काफ़ी दूर है. I realize that most of the audience is or in fact all the audience is Pakistani. So कुछ बातें ऐसी हैं जिसकी वजह से मैं थोड़ा सा उर्दू में भी बात करूँगा. जो कल के वाक़यात हैं वो काफ़ी सारी चीज़ों से linked हैं, as we'll go and see later in my presentation. And it reflects on us as a country, it reflects on us as members of the legal profession, and it is reflective generally of how we have evolved or failed to evolve as a nation. We also have Atif Mia's recent article in the New York Times, shared widely amongst all. और उसमें दो important चीज़ें हैं. One, he holds religious extremism responsible for the country's state of affairs. And secondly, he holds the grip of the moneyed elite, the industrial and feudal elite, to which many of us perhaps belong or represent or associate with, for the state that we are in today. But at the same time, I didn't find anything new in that article. We've all congratulated him on writing that piece, but only so much can be said in 1,200 words. And why is that mentioned on this slide about perception? Because if he was a member of the advisory team of the government, that would have been a more detailed paper given to the powers that be. Instead, it landed as an op-ed in one of the most read international publications, creating a perception of Pakistan as perhaps a struggling economy, a country that is unable to fix its financial issues. The important aspect here is that the issues that he identified are not new. In fact, don't even relate to this particular government. It's a systematic issue. Those issues need to be fixed anyway. But successive governments have failed to look at those things. Nevertheless, that article was shared in all sorts of WhatsApp groups and social media posts and whatnot. And the impression, not just amongst those who want to see Pakistan as not progressing, but even within us Pakistanis, was that things are bad. We haven't been able to fix them. And that makes my and your life as people trying to encourage investment in Pakistan difficult or more difficult. There are some good things. Mr. Nadeem Hussain was here earlier today. I don't know if he's still around. He's an example of somebody who keeps promoting different Pakistani startups, especially in the technology sector, on LinkedIn. On the face of it, it may not seem very important. But the reality is, it does create a perception of a lot happening in Pakistan in relation to the startup space. You and I are people with international connections on our social media. And if we are sharing positive things, it does create a positive image of the country. And as I said at the beginning, the image and perception of the country can't be separated from the perception of the country as an investment destination. Our stock market performance. We can talk all about hot money and whatnot, and this is a new phenomena. I think nobody really knew of the concept of hot money till a few months ago. Now we all do. But regardless of that, when the newspapers, the international press, and the diaspora keeps projecting our stock market as one of the best performing ones, it does create a positive image about Pakistan. And people start looking at Pakistan as an investment destination. The other thing is that Pakistan was one of the most progressive, forward-looking countries when it came to attracting foreign direct investment. In the world of international law, one of the first lectures that you receive or give is about bilateral investment treaties, free trade agreements and whatnot. Very few know that the first bilateral investment treaty in the world was in fact between Pakistan and Germany in 1958. That's another issue, that we have been bad at negotiating these deals, bad at inserting dispute resolution clauses in it. And those have ended up taking us to ICSID and international arbitration many a times now. But if we go back to the very basics, we were the first country which entered into a bilateral investment treaty ever in the world. Social media influencers. Again, going back to the point that I was trying to make about creating a positive perception. We can't wash our dirty linen in public. You can say all you want in the local press, on local channels, and whatnot. But if you are using LinkedIn, if you are writing for New York Times, and if you are only saying bad things about the country, then you are not helping the country's cause, and you are definitely not helping your cause if your stakes are in this country. Pakistan as an investment destination. Some of these things you all know. Most of you, I can see, are accomplished executives and business persons. Stock market remains a viable destination, hopefully. Real estate, again, there are various challenges. As a lawyer, as an investment professional, I would say there's a lot of debt capital there. We don't have a fully developed mortgaged system. People are sitting on land values, land capital, which they could be deploying towards entrepreneurship or other projects, which is not happening. We talk about acquisitions. But we have to realize that many of the large acquisitions that we see in Pakistan are a result of global acquisitions. And the Pakistani element is really just the Pakistani end of that global transaction. So if an Uber and Careem deal takes place, that deal is taking place internationally. But there are Pakistan-specific deals as well. The previous speakers mentioned that, Dr. Shamshad mentioned that, the infrastructure financing needs of our country may well exceed 500 to $600 billion alone. In the last few years, what's the total value of the foreign direct investment that we have attracted in Pakistan in terms of mergers and acquisitions? A few $1 billion at max. So there's a long way to go. Can it be achieved? Yes. But that will take a very concerted effort from all of us. From the likes of us, from the likes of Adnan and his colleagues at KPMG, from the likes of people organizing this event and creating a space for discussion. Then we have the privatization program coming up. We see many international groups talking to us, talking to KPMG and the likes, about taking part in the privatization program in Pakistan. Could that be a vehicle through which foreign investment could be attracted? Yes. We also need to differentiate between remittances versus institutional investment. We now have annual remittances which exceed $20 billion a year. That's a large amount. Are we, as a country, offering those overseas Pakistanis the incentives that they deserve as investors in this country? I don't think so. I've been on the Prime Minister's Overseas Pakistani Advisory Council since the previous government, and frankly, not much has been done. The role of the Board of Investment. We all know a Board of Investment exists. How effective is it in acting as a one-stop shop in this country? Can you go there and register a company as a foreign investor just through the Board of Investment? I have personally registered companies for foreign investors in one day in countries like Tanzania and Ethiopia. Physically going there with my clients and registering companies, 100% foreign-owned companies, in one day. And I'm not talking about jurisdictions that are more developed than us. I'm talking about Tanzania and Ethiopia here. We have an ambassador at large on investment now from the city. I believe he is trying to do his bit. But the position perhaps needs to be institutionalized. We have dozens of investment and commerce officers at our foreign missions, at Pakistani embassies abroad. I don't know how many of us realize that. Are we making use of them? Do they have the right information and tools available to them? Are they doing roadshows on Pakistan? I don't see many happen. So they're all things that we could be doing. Role of Pakistani diaspora. Again, it's very fragmented. It's not structured at all. We have more than 25,000 doctors in the US. The Association of Pakistani Physicians in North America, could be a multi-billion-dollar investor in Pakistan. Are they? No. Do we have healthcare needs in Pakistan? If infrastructure development requires $500 to $600 billion, I'm sure tens of billions of dollars at least are required in the healthcare sector. So who should be our first port of call? Our own diaspora. Not happening though. I recently was involved and attended the launch of a Pakistan dollar equity fund by these three institutions. Let's see how that goes. It's a first dollar-denominated equity fund. That could show us the sign of things to come. What is the Pakistan attraction? I mean, we all know this, but it's worth repeating. We expect quick returns in certain sectors. Real estate, the Pakistani real estate, forget about the currency fluctuations and all that, but the Pakistan real estate returns are higher than anywhere else. And perhaps more stable in most cases. We have a growing domestic market. How many countries can talk about, tens of millions of people entering the market every year? We have established private sector players. We play the blame game with certain institutions being stakeholders in our industrial sectors. But at the same time, we have dozens of Pakistani privately held business groups which have diversified portfolios. That's a good sign. They're still thriving. We have a very well-developed banking and finance sector. Perhaps we should only have 12 banks in the country. But the fact is that we have exported more bankers to the Middle East and beyond than anybody else. All the Islamic finance professionals, Islamic bankers in the region are of Pakistani origin. Are our assets undervalued in dollar terms? Definitely. Does that present an opportunity to a dollar buyer to enter the market? Of course. Is our ease of doing business ranking improving? It is. Has our visa system improved? Yes. So all these signs are positive, and we need to capitalize them. But what's the Pakistan hesitation? When you start dealing with regulators and government institutions, we now have the federal structures and then the provincial structures and then all the civic bodies. That's where the problem comes. The foreign investors feel that there is a perception that they need to have a local partner in order to consolidate and protect their business interests in this country. 100% foreign ownership is allowed as per law, except certain areas. But still, that perception is there. Issues with the legal system, with my sector, stay orders or injunctions. The worst thing possible. You engage good lawyers and they will get you an injunction and things will stop. The foreign investors want to know how can they do business in such an environment. Difficulties with enforcement of judicial decisions and arbitral awards. People want certainty when they invest. You want certainty. Contract enforcement is a key issue here. What is the value of a contract between two parties in Pakistan? How quickly can you get it enforced? Forget about foreign investors. Even you, if you're doing business in the country and entering into contracts, how do you secure yourself? How do you ensure that if there is a breach, you will actually be able to enforce it promptly? Abrupt or arbitrary changes in policies. We live by SROs. Things are issued at whim, sometimes just to favor certain business segments. That kind of unpredictability is not that foreign investors require. We have capacity issues, serious capacity issues, at the public sector, but also in the private sector. And that's including in the legal profession. We have corruption issues at all levels. Not to say other countries don't, but it's an issue. Our educational standards and systems are not performing as they should. And why is that important? Because we should be relying on our labor force in this country. But the problem is that the graduates of our universities, in most cases, are not performing at the level at which foreign investors would expect them to. Imagine being a foreign investor and being a shareholder in a Pakistani company. We should ask the State Bank how long it takes these days to remit your annual dividends to the shareholder entity abroad. Basic stuff like that. If I have to wait a year or year and a half to get my legitimate dividend declared, and then I have to wait another year to get that money abroad, why would I invest in this country? These are things that we should look at. Reputational damage to Pakistani businesses due to financial scandals outside of Pakistan. You know what I'm referring to, right? Abraj. The holy cow. But does that impact people like me, people like some of you who work with international institutions and hold yourself proudly as a Pakistani, not as a dual national or a Canadian or a British national? Of course it does. We owned it as a Pakistani enterprise, a Pakistani-led enterprise, and now we also suffer the backlash. That's the reality. Try asking for a few $100 million to invest in Pakistan, and Abraj will come straight up in the conversation. FATF grey listing. Those of you who know me know that I keep downplaying the FATF thing publicly and that it's all international politics. But the reality is, it matters. It matters to foreign investors, it matters to financial institutions, it matters to your international suppliers, and you have to improve your structures and systems to get out of the grey list. Some final comments. Judicial interference, not acceptable, not appropriate. We have two examples, Hapco versus Wapta case. When an investor comes in and knows that or realizes that despite having a foreign arbitration, foreign governing law clause, the courts will drag it through the mud in Pakistan for years, other foreign investors will wait and think. Rekodik. It may have been a bad deal. I think it was a bad deal. Should have been renegotiated. It wasn't in Balochistan's favor, it wasn't in Pakistan's favor. But look at it from a foreign investor's point of view. You made a deal. And now, it went on for years and years and years and years. You made Dr. Samar Mubarakman and Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry heroes for interfering in this process. We all did. And the elephant in the room that nobody seems to talk about, and that's also a symptom of our short memory as a nation, a $6 billion award that we have to pay. It's a final award, which we have on limited grounds appealed, but one day we'll have to pay something. We are applauding $1 billion in policy-based loans from the ADB, while we have $6 billion liability in a single international arbitration, due thanks to our Supreme Court and one of our most preeminent scientists. And we shouldn't feel ashamed in naming and shaming people when it comes to these things. Other examples of political interference. K-Electric. We can disagree with Abraj and all that, as I do in various respects. But the fact is, a deal was done. And they were doing another deal. Chinese money was going to come in. Why haven't things moved on? I mean, what impression does it convey? What perception does it convey to other large foreign investors looking at Pakistan as an investment destination? Then purely from a practitioner's point of view, when we start advising large international organizations looking at acquiring assets in Pakistan, of course, one of the first steps is due diligence, legal and financial due diligence. Basic issues, gaps in corporate governance, shareholding structures are not properly done, documentation is not properly maintained, there are no data rooms, things that an international organization would just expect are not there, except with the exception of the few large corporate-style business groups in the country. Privatization efforts gone wrong. We have a large privatization program. People should be running around trying to get work in this sector. Recently, the government floated a tender to appoint consultants for a power project's privatization. Only 2 consortiums submitted bids. Only 2. How many investors will come up? We need to rethink what the problem is here. And the next time the Supreme Court or somebody else tries to stop steel mill privatization, for example, we need to think the consequences it will have. And if these are legitimate reasons for which they are interfering, a judicial review is important, then those should be clarified and those should be taken to their logical conclusion. For example, in the Rikodik case, corruption has been alleged. Has corruption been proven and anybody sentenced? No. NAB investigations now into the LNG sector. Doesn't seem to be going right. It doesn't seem to be giving confidence to foreign investors looking at our energy sector. The circular debt issues with IPPs, again the same situation. Power, energy are 2 key areas in which foreign investors come and invest. And that's often backed on the idea of a sovereign guarantee on the basis of a guaranteed power purchase agreement and things like that. Unlike selling, consumer goods, selling power is a much more secure business for foreign investors in complex jurisdictions like Pakistan. But if you don't know that you'll get paid on time and you'll have to finance your debt again and again, and you'll have to go file arbitrations to get paid, not looking good. So that is what it is. Having said all this, and this was the last slide, I won't stand between you and coffee anymore. Pakistan, I believe, is a great investment destination. The fact this room is full today, the fact that we have all taken out time to discuss this is a positive sign. The fact that people are looking at Pakistan, despite the challenges that we face, and we have come out, hopefully, of the terrorism rut that plagued us for years. The security situation in Karachi, touch wood, seems to be much better. Things should be improving. Dollar was expected to be at 200 to a rupee, at 200 by the end of December 2019. It's improved 5-6%, in fact. So the signs are positive. But perception is important. Let's not play into the hands of people who just want to say that this is a gone story. This is a story gone wrong. Because if that's the case, then we shouldn't be wasting our time here. If we are here, we are committed, then let's be positive. And let's try, not just for our sake, for the nation's sake, but more importantly, for the sake of those who don't have a seat on the table. Those who can't be present at such occasions, at such events, and whose voice is not normally heard. That foreign investment and diversification in the domestic markets and all that, expanding retail opportunities and whatnot, it's going to help those people more than it'll help many of us. So on that note, thank you for inviting me, and good to be here. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Taimur, for this thought-provoking discussion. I would like you to please stay on the stage so we can have the memento distribution. May I please also have Mr. Hamza Wasi Hashmi, CEO, Terabis. Also, if we can have Mr. Amir.
May I request, we are fortunate to have with us today Justice Sarma Jalal Usmani Saab. So I would request him to please come up on the stage and give the honor of giving the memento to the speaker. Thank you. Sarma Jalal Usmani Saab.
A big round of applause for the speaker. All right. Thank you so much, sir.